Hey guys, and welcome to this episode of the Happy Knitting Podcast. My name is Julia, I'm coming to you from the UK, and today is Saturday the 22nd of April 2023. I'm so glad you're joining me today to talk about some knitting. Can you believe it's only been a week and I'm podcasting again? I mean, what's going on there? I have no idea. If you're coming back, thank you so much for being a regular viewer of this podcast. I really appreciate those of you who do come back or possibly subscribe and do all of that stuff. If you're watching for the very first time, welcome. If you do want to find out more about me, I did sort of reintroduce myself on the previous video, so it may be worth going back and checking that out, but you're of course welcome to just throw yourself right in, because we're going to talk about some knitting, we're going to talk about some crochet, and have a bit of random bits and bobs and life and craft and stuff towards the end. So yeah, why am I podcasting after a week? To be honest, I haven't really worked on any of my whips. I mean, not really. But we've had a crazy week, and I've just basically used that as an excuse to cast on new things. So I have too many whips at the moment. I try to have maybe like 3 or 4, depending on what I'm working on, plus blankets, because blankets don't count as whips, right? But yeah, I've just sort of abandoned what I was working on and cast on some stuff this week, so I will just show you that because I'm quite excited. I've also brought up a blanket that I've been working on since the beginning of the year, but I haven't shown you yet, so yeah. First up, maybe what I'm wearing is the Sunday sweater by Petite Knit. This is Sunday sweater number 1. I've knit 3 of them because apparently I have a problem where I just keep knitting the same sweaters because they just fit really well. So this is the first Sunday sweater that I've made. I used a strand of mohair and a strand of Holt's Super Soft in either the nougat or the almond colorway. I think it's almond. I have both in my stash. I have more than enough to make sweaters out of both of those colorways because I just find that they're really good sort of beigey, creamy, oatmeal-y neutrals. So I just use that yarn a lot. So it's either almond or nougat. And yeah, I really like it. I really love using a mohair with a non-superwash yarn because I feel like if you use a mohair and a superwash, like a sock yarn or something, it becomes really like this like silky fabric, which is lovely and it's really nice sometimes. But if you use a non-superwash, in my opinion, it just has like a slightly more structured fit or structured feeling while still having that mohair effect, and I really like it. So anyways, I've knit 3 of these sweaters. I knit this one, which is cream. I've knit one that is grey, and I've knit one that is beige. So they're basically almost the same, but I always gravitate towards this one. This one is just my favorite. I've basically been living in it this entire winter. It's just like you throw it on, you're dressed, and it looks just a little bit fancier with like skinny jeans and maybe tucked in. I mean, it's not a fancy sweater, but for someone who tends to just wear whatever is on top of the wardrobe, I mean, I spent my life with a 2-year-old. This feels like you just feel like ready to go and dressed and like a proper like human being, and I love it. Anyways, so that's what I'm wearing. Should we talk about some of my new works in progress? I'll just start with what I'm most excited about. You may or may not have heard about the Prism blanket, which is a blanket that I think came out towards the beginning of the year from Pearl Soho. If you've been watching, you know I've kind of been falling down the Pearl Soho rabbit hole, so I've been knitting again. I'm knitting on my 4th half and half wrap, which, spoiler alert, I still haven't finished it. I did put some work in, but the rows are getting really long. And they came up with this Prism blanket, which has a similar look, that it also has squares made up of like half and half triangles basically, but it's a different way of doing it. It's a different way of knitting them. And then obviously it's turned into a blanket with like all these colorful half triangle squares. And I thought about it. I even cast on for it with some stash yarn a while ago, but it didn't feel right. And then I don't know how I got back to it. I don't know how. I think I saw someone on Instagram showing it, and then I just fell into this rabbit hole. And also Pearl Soho had a sale on the yarn that you're meant to use for the blanket. So I got myself some Soho good wool. Not sponsored, by the way. I'll show you the colors that I've caked up already. And I am making the Prism blanket. So, like I said, I'm not sponsored. I bought this yarn with my own money, unfortunately. I think they had like a 20 or 25% off sale quite recently. So I went for it and I spent like hours and hours pouring over the right colors because I saw someone who sort of did this, like pinks and pale pinks and grey and oatmeal. And this is very much my default. If you know me, like these are the colors that I like to use. And then I'm really, really happy that I've decided to throw in this colorway, which, I mean, how glorious is this bowl? This is Hay. They're all coming out a bit blown out. They're just slightly more saturated. And yeah, I've decided to make basically a pink and grey blanket with a yellow accent. And I'm really, really excited about it. If you do want to know the colorway names, they're all listed in my Ravelry. So everything I talk about, if you can use Ravelry, please just click the link below and I won't have to bore everyone else with the colorway names. But yeah, I got enough yarn to hopefully make the bigger version of the blanket because I think blankets need to be big. And yeah, so long story short, I'll go more into this later. My son had surgery on Wednesday, planned surgery, but it came up very, very suddenly. We got the call a day ahead because they had a cancellation and we had the chance to get his surgery in, which we did, and it was all fine. I got home and this yarn had arrived, so I just decided to cast on. Like, I was just ready for a new cast on. I was really excited. I needed like a little pick-me-up. So I have started the Prism blanket. So essentially what you do is you knit these squares, like I said, that are like half and half triangles. But while with the half and half wrap, you basically knit them with short rows, like you knit this way, and then you knit this way. With these ones, they're a little bit more straightforward, so you just start the corner and you increase, and then you decrease. I'm not giving anything away here, by the way, because it is a free pattern. And then you join as you go, which I really enjoy. I know some people don't like the joining as you go, and I think it depends a bit on your knitting style, or maybe your experience with joining in a way that makes like a seamless, or like a fabric that isn't gappy. But the way that they have you join the squares, I really like. I tried a couple of different ways because I was wary about it. And in the end, now I'm just doing literally exactly as the pattern recommends you do it. So I have finished 2 squares. It's gonna go this way eventually, not that it matters. And I have just started my 3rd square this morning. So you can see I started here, and now as I'm increasing, I'm also just going to join along this ridge. And yeah, I am so excited about this. It's stupid because it's just garter stitch knitting, but this is really hitting the spot for me because unlike with like the half and half triangles wrap, the rows aren't very long, so you always have like something to look forward to. Like you finish the increases, you change colors, you finish the decreases, you start joining. And I feel like you're seeing progress relatively quickly, while at the same time, it's still really mindless. Like, I got the hang of how to do this really quickly. And yeah. Modifications, the gauge is really weird. It's like a 22 stitch gauge in garter stitch on 4mm needles. Which this yarn, I think they listed as a DK/worsted. I would say it's definitely a sport weight. It's got 350 meters, I think, per 100 grams. And I knew I was never going to get that gauge, and I tend to be a loose knitter, even if I try not to be. So I went down to 3.75, and still my gauge is 19 stitches rather than 22. So I thought, what am I going to do? Because I don't want to run out of yarn, and if my stitches are bigger, the blanket is going to be bigger as well. And I want a big blanket, but I don't want a huge blanket. So what I decided to do in the end is I just did the maths and figured out that rather than increasing to 85 stitches per square, I'm increasing to 73, and that will give me the same size of squares. So it's a little bit quicker for me to knit because I have to knit less stitches. I should definitely have enough yarn, and if I have some left over, like I'll still have the same size blanket and I can just do something else with the leftover yarn. So basically that's my only modification. Everything else I'm just knitting according to pattern, and again it's a free pattern, so I'm not giving anything away. So as you can see, you have like two main colors, which are going to be this top section of each square. And I'm going to have the light grey and the light pink, which I cannot find. Where did they go? So these are going to be my sort of main colors, which is why I think this is going to have quite a pink hue towards the end. And then these three are going to be my quote-unquote contrast colors. Yeah, so that's that. Quick talk about needles. I have been using and getting more of these Licker needles. Again, not sponsored. These are the Licker Blush. So they're basically the same as the regular Licker needles. They just come in like a bunch of different colors now, and they have the swivel cords, so you can twist the needle and it doesn't twist the cable. And I feel like I'm a couple of years late to this party, because a few years ago everyone was going on and on and on and on about Licker, and I didn't get the point. And now that I feel like the whole hype has died down massively, I'm really loving them. And I'm a person, I've always knit on metal needles because I want my needles to be slick. But what I'm finding with these is they're like easy on the hands because they are wood, but they're still slick, especially as you knit with them. Like, I feel like they just become nicer and nicer and nicer to work with, and I'm really enjoying them. And I've been I like interchangeable needles. But I basically only use the Chiagu because they're the only ones that I trust with. Like, they have no snags, no weird things happening to them. And I've had Knit Pro, I think, Nova interchangeables before, and I did not like them. I like Knit Pro needles, but they're not always reliable. And as far as I know, Licker is part of Knit Pro, but I found that their quality is much better. So I started out with I think I purchased one set of needles and tips. And I've added a few needles and tips now. And I think for my birthday, I'm going to ask for the shorter tip set because I'm really enjoying them. So, side note, who would have thought I'm going to get into wooden needles? Yeah, so there's that. Should we talk about let's talk about another blanket. I'm already talking about blankets, and I'm hoping I'm not talking too fast. I have had a fair bit of coffee this morning because coffee. Like I said, I am working on another blanket, and there's also a sort of precursor story to this one, because I was making, you may remember if you follow me on Instagram, I made a superwash merino blanket for my son to have like as his first sort of blanket for his bed, and I made that in half double crochet. Is it half treble if you're in the US? In the UK? I'm so confused. Half double crochet, whatever that is in the other crochet language. But I was really missing doing granny squares, granny stripes. I just really love granny stitch. So I decided then and there that I was going to make another granny square blanket. And I also cast this on. I think I got the yarn as we came back from Germany after Christmas. So yeah, 4 months ago. And I haven't worked on this a massive amount, but I wanted to show it nevertheless because it's never been on the podcast, and I haven't really posted about it either. So as you can see, this is going to be just a giant granny square blanket. I'm just going to make one big square until I either run out of yarn or I'm sick of crocheting in the round. No pattern to this. There's a million YouTube videos on how to make a granny square. The only thing I would recommend is find one that makes you change directions, because if you don't change directions every now and then, it's going to start to like skew slightly and it just makes like a weird shape. So I actually change directions every time I finish a round. I will then go the other way, and that way you get like a perfectly balanced square. I'm doing one round stripes. I'm I'm weaving my ends in as I go. I just haven't snipped them off, so there's like a whole line of, this is where I basically do all my joins, and then you have all the ends, but they have been woven in. I just need to snip them off at the end. And I really like this. It's like a weird color palette that I picked. But I think it works. I am quite excited about this. Can I give you a close-up? So I am using, I think, a 4mm crochet hook. I like to use these really cheap crochet hooks. I think they're from Knit Picks, Knit Pro, something like that. I really like them. And the yarn that I am using is Filcolana Pernia in a million different colors. Don't ask me. I basically went with, I have 3 base colors. So every second stripe I'm doing either this like dark brown, medium brown, or I think this is called marzipan. I really like this color. And then in between, so you can tell there's always one neutral stripe and then there's one colorful stripes, and I went with like a palette of teals and turquoises and a palette of pinks and orange. And they make this really weird sort of blanket color, but I think it really works. I really like them. And I don't really have like a super clear system of which color I use next. I just sort of do what feels right. And yeah, this is where we are. I am not rushing this one. I feel like I'm always going to at some point go back to granny squares. So this one is sort of like a very, very slow ongoing project, whereas the other one with the squares, I tend to be more like, I need to work on this now, because once I get out of the rhythm of it, it'll be much harder to pick up, whereas this is really easy to pick up. So I just have it like hanging around, and whenever I get sick of knitting sometime, or I just need something different, I will just like crochet around on this blanket. 17 minutes in. I can't believe it. I thought this is going to be a really, really short episode, but apparently not. Anyways, I have a couple more works in progress. Let's do the other one first, because this one I completely forgot to show you last week. I don't know why. I am still working on my stripy socks from my Stripy Cat Yarns Yarn Club. That is not a club anymore because she scrapped it after a month, which was really, really sad. So I was really excited to have like, I think, a monthly installment of self-strapping yarn and make all these socks that obviously wouldn't match, but they'd all be sort of like the same idea, the same dye. But it doesn't exist anymore, so yeah. This is the first colorway and the one and only colorway that I got. I don't remember the name. Must have been, I think it was Macarena or something like that. It is in my Ravelry and I have talked about it in the past. And I had already finished the first sock last time, I think. I'm just doing a 3x1 ribbed sock, as I really liked ribbed socks and the way that they fit, like they just don't stretch out as much. And I have started the second sock, and I think I'm like 2/3 down the leg, and then hopefully I can just zoom through these and get these done, because I feel like they've been on the needles for a while now. They just need to be finished. But what did I do instead of working on these? Basically, as soon as we got the news on Tuesday that my son was going to go into surgery in Cambridge the following day, I decided I need to cast on a sock, A, because I needed to just calm myself down and do something to like distract me a little bit, and also because who knows how much knitting you're gonna get done in the hospital. So I didn't want to have like a big project. I also didn't want to take a sock that I might then finish and run out of yarn or something weird. I just needed mindless knitting, so I cast on a new sock. And am I losing stitch? Oh no, I'm just in the middle of the row. So yeah, I had bought this yarn a couple of weeks ago on sale. This is really exciting yarn, actually. Again, not sponsored. Nothing is sponsored. I'll stop saying that, but everything I talk about is my yarn, my money, my opinions. This is yarn from, I think it's like a daughter company of Earth Yarns. So you may know Earth Yarns. They do like a unique sock, which is like a self-striping commercial sock yarn. And now apparently, I don't really know how the connection works, but they've come out with this wool, which is called Gusto wool, and they have sort of variegated yarns, which they're called something else, and then they have the Echoes range, which is these gradient skeins of yarns. So you get two 50-gram skeins that you have to then cake up, and I did a very messy job. And they will give you two matching gradient socks or whatever you choose to knit with it. So I thought that was really clever, and it was also relatively affordable for what it was. I think I paid maybe £12 for 100 grams, which in the UK yarn is expensive, so I thought that was quite good. So anyways, this is colorway 1512, and as you can see, I think it was the perfect sort of hospital knitting project, because I want to knit these fairly long, because I want to knit as much of the color gradient as I can into the sock. So I knew I was going to have loads and loads and loads of yarn to knit through. And I'm not sure, I may just do afterthought heels to preserve the color range. Or maybe I'll just do a heel, because the color runs are so slow, like there's such like big chunks of each color. I think I can get away with doing the heel in this yarn as well. It may not throw the colors off very much at all. But anyway, so that's what I cast on. I did 25 rows of a 2x2 rib, because I do like a long rib, especially on a long sock. And these ones I'm just doing plain stockinette, and you can tell this is what I knit the evening before the surgery, and this is what I knit in hospital. So I didn't knit very much, but it was just nice to have this tiny like project in a small bag with me, and just something to keep my hands busy. So that's another sock whip. And also I cast on a hat, because Kai oh my god, this hat is full of like wall stuff, because we are stripping wallpaper. My husband needed another hat, because he keeps losing them, or some of them he doesn't like and then he doesn't wear them, and his sort of solution, rather than like look for his hat, is to ask me to knit him another one. So I was like, you know what, I have this yarn. I actually knit tons of Christmas hats for people for Christmas throughout autumn. I think I may have started when, oh yeah, in the Soccer World Cup I started knitting these hats. I thought that must have been November, and I think I knit 4 hats for 4 people in my family. I just knit ribbed hats, because I quite enjoy a ribbed hat. I'm weird, I like ribbing. One of them was subsequently, unfortunately, cut up by my toddler, so I only had 3 to gift. But I still had more of this yarn, and of course I don't have the label, but this is the Hobby Highland wool, which is the same as the Filcolana Pernilla. Oh, hang on. There we go. Hobby Highland wool, 100% wool, made in Scandinavia. So again, I figured out a while ago that I think this is exactly the same yarn as the Pernilla. It must be spun in the same mill. It's got the same meterage, everything. Price point is relatively similar. I think the Filcolana is slightly cheaper, but it depends on what kind of deal you get with Hobby, because they're very sort of like deal driven, aren't they? Anyways, one 50-gram ball of these of this yarn is enough for me to knit a hat. So it's become a really good sort of staple yarn for me to make gifts. And I had this charcoal colorway, which is number 9, which I knew would be perfect for my husband. So yeah, here we are. And again, we are stripping wallpaper at the moment, and we're taking a very long time doing it. So I just have this these little pieces of like wallpaper fluff all over it. But this is where we are. I'm knitting a 1x1 hat, 1x1 rib over, I think, 104 stitches. That's just what I found has really worked well for gifts and for everyone that I've been knitting these for. I'm using 3.75mm needles. Also, although I did use, I think, 4mm on my previous hats, but I think 3.75 might work even better, because my previous ones, they were, if anything, they were borderline being too big. So I'm hoping that this one will be perfect. And for this one, again, I'm testing out the shorter lacquer needles, because wanted to figure out what I'm going to get for my birthday, and I really like them, so I think this is what I'm gonna go with, and then I can make loads and loads and loads of hats, because I really like these short needles, but they're not like the tiny ones that like make you cramp your hands. I could never use those, but these ones seem to be just fine. So yeah, ribbed hat, another cast on that I shouldn't have done. That's like 3 cast-ons now in a week. And I have also worked a little bit on my Anchors sweater, also by Petite Knit. This is Anchor sweater number 4 that I'm knitting in my Blacker Falkland Merino yarn. I've talked about this quite in depth in my last podcast episode, so I just wanted to show it really quickly. I've just put in some work on the body. I would say I'm at least halfway down the body on this now. It's just really scrunched up because I'm using really short needles. I have since ordered some Chiaogu cables, which I'm actually looking at right now, because I have lovely needles and then I just don't have the cables that I need. So I finally bit the bullet and bought myself some more cables, so then I can knit sweaters a bit more comfortably. Yeah, so basically that's what I've been working on this week. Haven't touched my lento. I have worked a fair bit on my half and half wrap, but honestly it looks the same. So moving on, last week I mentioned the unbalanced weaving yarn that I stupidly used for my lento number 2, and thank you for everyone. I've got some really useful feedback from everyone. There's some really knowledgeable people watching, so that was really helpful. What I figured out is I think I could try to make it work by, I can't just ply it as you would a normal like spinning yarn, because they just have like a slight twist, but not like the amount of twist that you would have if you hand spun singles and then plied them. So there's different ways of going about it. All of them would involve a lot of work, and they might still not work out. That's the problem. You probably won't really know until you knit another sort of big garment in the round to see if even like a tiny bit of twist can, you know, mess everything up quite a lot if you're knitting in the round. One person very cleverly said, would it be the same issue if you knit something flat? And I think that may be a solution. Another solution might be I might just destash it, because honestly, life is short. I have yarn to knit. This yarn was ridiculously cheap. Not that that matters, but it matters a little bit. Like, it's not super close to my heart. I might just let it go to someone like a weaver who knows what to do with it and not bother. Like, I don't want to spend hours and hours of my life that I could be knitting, fixing a yarn that I like but not love. Yeah, so just a quick update on that. As a few people said, can't I unspin it and then like use the fluff to spin better yarn? And the answer is not really, unfortunately. You also can't just hang it to, or like wash it and hang it to balance out, because it wouldn't, like the twist is in the yarn. So yeah, sad story. I may just need to find the energy to destash it. At the moment, I have it in our living room. We have like a fireplace and then sort of built-in glass shelves on either side. And I have the cones like stacked up there. They look really pretty because it's really nice colors. So I've almost like thought about just keeping them as like a cute design feature. I really like them. And obviously Kai thought I was insane. So who knows? Probably you're not going to see those again. Yeah. So that's it, I think, on... Oh no! We have spinning content. Who would have thought? I mentioned last week that I never get around to spinning, and suddenly I felt like spinning. So I unboxed my unpacked my e-spinner. I have the Ashford e-spinner 3 and have had that for a couple of years, but we only moved 6 weeks ago, so it was still like all packed up. So I got it out, and I just wanted to do a quick spin. So I got some of my fiber, which lives in this very sort of aesthetically unpleasant bag over there, and I spun a skein of yarn. This is from fiber from Fiber Hut in, I think, in Wales. They're somewhere around here. And this was, this blend was something to do with gin, which, I mean, obviously I love that. And I think this was a wool, silk, and some kind of naps, viscose naps, I don't know, some kind of like tweedy bits blend, and I think it's really pretty. And what I did is I spun some relatively thick singles and then did a 2-ply. This I think is about an Aran weight yarn, and I think this is going to make a really fun hat. I'm really enjoying sort of quick spin projects at the moment. Every time I do, like, I have like sweater spins. I even have a finished sweater quantity that's like caked up and ready to be knit. But I just don't have the patience for it at the moment. And you know what? I actually like a thicker yarn every now and then for projects, because I think for years and years, back when I had loads of time to spin, I would make these like really, really thin yarns, like light fingering weight 2 and 3 plies. And then when it came to knitting with it, and even now I still have I have a lot of them actually, I then would even like now double them to knit, because I just don't have that many projects that I want to knit with very thin yarn. And often you have like, maybe you only spin like 100 grams or 150 grams, so you don't have enough to make like massive projects with. So that then what do you do with like 500 odd meters of handspun? So I'm actually consciously trying to spin slightly thicker yarns now, and then hopefully I can make some nice gifts and stuff out of them, because I mean, how nice would it be to have like a handspun and hand knit hat for Christmas, for example. So yeah, a long story to say, I finished a skein of yarn and I'm quite excited about it. It's very soft. I really like this blend. Yeah. So moving on to non-knitting content, I also this week did some ice dyeing with a friend. I have a friend who she has like a small business doing t-shirts and stuff, and she does a lot of like bleaching, which is really cool. And I've done some of that with her, and we just did some dyeing because a long while ago my mother-in-law got my son this sweater, which was very white to start with, and I was like, oh my god, like I would never buy my son something white because he's 2 and it's gonna get messy, and I'm going to let him get messy, and my life is too short then to spend it like getting massive stains out of a 2-year-old's white sweater. Like I would never buy him something white. And I wanted to dye it there and then, but I was good. I let him wear it for a couple of months, and then it didn't look so white anymore. And so we did some ice dyeing, and he asked for, I think, yellow, red, and pink. No, yellow, red, and purple. And there was some reason why I was told that purple wouldn't work really well with this, because I think if the purple touches the other colors, it turns brown. So in the end, we went with yellow, orange, red, and I threw some blue on there. And I mean, it's my first time doing it. It doesn't look super great, but I think it looks really fun. It's nice and colorful, and I am quite excited about it. I also dyed a t-shirt for myself, which I did in yellow and pink, and again, it came out a bit paler than I wanted. I wanted like full-on like crazy hippie chick vibes. It didn't really come out like that, but I'm gonna do it again, and I'm really excited. And she even said we could dye some yarn sometime. So yeah, that's another craft that I have done this week. Sorry, I hope I'm not coming across super rushed. I just realized that I have someone picking up some clothes that I'm selling and stuff in a second. So, well, I am a little bit rushed. I just basically realized that a second ago. Anyways, I think that's it for the crafty content. So if you're only there for that, that's absolutely fine. I will see you whenever I podcast next. If you do want to stick around, I will just be very, very brief, because I know some of you have been sort of feeling for my poor son and for us, and have followed our little hospital journey. So I'm obviously not going to talk about details, but just to say, we found out something was wrong about 8 weeks ago. We got like the whole like going in an ambulance to Cambridge in the middle of the night sort of experience, which was not very fun, except for toddler who loved it. because he was feeling great at that time, and so he just had like the time of his life being on an ambulance. And then basically he's been on the wait list for surgery for a while, and we basically readied ourselves, even with like calling them to like follow up and try to like get him up on that waiting list. That's going to be like months and months, like sometime probably in summer or autumn, until he would get his surgery. But lo and behold, they called on Tuesday and be like, can you come in tomorrow and have surgery? And so we obviously said yes, and it was quite scary. I think in hindsight it was good that we didn't have like the, I don't know, a couple of weeks notice that you'd usually have, because I would just have spent that time like worrying. I may have kept him home from nursery, because obviously he has to be well to have surgery. And this way it was very, very sudden, but it was also really good because it was so sudden. Like, he was the picture of health. He didn't have any nursery bugs, which obviously would have kept him from having that surgery. And yeah, so we spent a day in Cambridge Hospital on last Wednesday. And obviously it was hard, because who wants like the kid to have like a proper surgery? Like, I've had surgery twice in my life, but none of that I think was as like long and scary as that. But he's completely fine. He honestly, I couldn't believe it. Like, they get you, like they make you sort of anticipate that they may sleep for a couple of days, really like sleep a lot and be in pain and have all these things. And my child just basically bounced up and was ready to continue living their life. So basically my life has been just stopping him from like killing himself, because he's not supposed to be climbing and riding bikes and jumping all over the place. He's supposed to be resting, and he's not. So yeah, but he is doing so well. Everyone at the hospital was amazing. Honestly, I couldn't believe it, because I mean, the NHS is so underfunded, and you could tell when we were there, like, things were delayed. The surgeons were basically just like running around and trying to catch up, and everyone was really busy, but they were so good with us. And I am just very happy that all of that is now behind us, and it went super well. And toddler is just being spoiled rotten with like all the like little gifts of activities that he can do without running around and eating way too much food, and he's doing really well. So that's out of the way. I think I did a fair bit of stress knitting, but yeah, I got a lot of lovely like Instagram messages from people who, I know a lot of people have been through similar things and know what it's like, and I really and truly appreciated that. So thank you if you were one of those people. Alright, I think I'm just gonna run. I am planning to record again before we go away. We are going away on holiday in 2 weeks. So hopefully I shall get one more episode in before then. I should also mention that I have turned ads on my videos again. I think the way YouTube works, you were seeing ads even before then, but before then I wasn't getting any revenue. But I've turned on revenue again because I have finally sorted out all of my tax stuff, which UK tax is complicated in my mind. But I figured it out, so I hope you guys don't mind. I think you would have seen ads either way, but this way at least I'm getting like a couple of pence every time you see the ads, and who knows. I hope you're all doing well. Thank you so much for following along my knitting journey. I can't believe how excited some of you get when I do post another video, which that's crazy, but I really truly appreciate it. So yeah, have a great week everyone. I hope you have some lovely crafts to keep you happy. I hope you're all healthy, and I will see you very soon. Happy knitting. Bye.